everyone. We're back with another episode of The Write Up. I'm Amber Parks, Director of Writing with Design. And tonight we have on Tabitha, who is our Curriculum and Engagement Specialist, and Megan, who is, well, Megan, you are a teacher ambassador for Writing with Design, and you are just an all-around incredible teacher. So we're just always honored to have you on. So tonight it's Lost in Transition. Because transitional words are so important and they make such a difference in the writing for students, and they just really, really have a hard time with them. But before we dive in, let's just take a minute and share any news or updates. What's going on in our worlds?
So big news. If you guys saw our first couple of episodes, my background has changed because I have moved to another state. So coming to you from a different time zone in Colorado, super excited to have moved here this past weekend and unboxed my bookshelves just for you all.
You look like you've been there already for months.
Was that the first thing that you unpacked was your bookshelves?
Always.
Yeah, always. Yeah, that was the correct answer.
Of course, my Writing with Design binders right there, front and center, ready to be put to use.
There they are. I love it. Well, and we're going to pull some pages straight out of the binders tonight to share. So that's going to be a really exciting part about our episode tonight for Lost in Transition. So let's dive in. Let me operate everything here smoothly, nicely. So what exactly is a transition? Let me go back to this one because it's not, there we go, so big. Want to see all of us. What exactly is a transition? What is that word? What does it mean? Well, there is a technical definition for it. And there we go. Let's see if I can get it now. There we go. The definition. Oh, wait, no, that's not the technical definition. We have a nicer one first, which is more the metaphor that transitions are like bridges. They connect one place to another, making that journey feel smooth and connected for the readers. And that's such an important piece. That bridge, when I saw it, made me think of Blue Cron. So crazy fact about me, I did, at the time, that was the world's highest bungee jump in South Africa when I was there teaching. And it looked very similar to that bridge, but it was much higher off the water. And I did it. And then I told my mom afterwards. So I highly recommend that sequence of events. But truly, transitions are like those bridges. You have one set of information, you have another set of information, and it has to be, it's those words that connect it. It's the words that allow you to cross over that chasm and make the two make sense.
Yes, but many of our students do not understand that about transitions because they treat transitions like a good old Stairmaster from the 90s, right? They're just moving up, but they're not going anywhere. They aren't connecting their ideas. A lot of times they use transitions as a checklist. Oh, yes, I have a first, second, third, last, right? Yeah. That they are not using them to connect ideas.
And they don't even know that there's other words out there to use. And so they're taught in elementary school, first I did this, second I did this, next I did this, and last this happened. And that's it. That's what they carry with them through high school. And they're not even aware that there are other phrases to use that are way more in depth and can connect their ideas in much better ways.
Yeah. Well, that makes me think a lot, like you said, in elementary school, it's almost like transitions get taught like a recipe card, right? Like first you do this, then you do this. It's very much like transitions can only be used to sequence, which is so not true. Transitions can be used in all 33 types of our writing, right? Not just sequencing, but that's what we tend to, or writing teachers tend to fall back on. And then our students just rely on those really easy transitions.
Yeah, I think we can all recite them in our sleep, right? It's first, then next, last, and finally, right? Students just know those. They plug them in. Teachers just put those up as the choices, and everyone moves on. And there's such an opportunity here to add such magic to the writing. So what exactly is a transition, right? We've talked about the ones that students know really well. We've talked about that they kind of throw them in. They're writing just the same ones over and over. And so here's kind of the technical definition that transitional word or phrase is a linguistic device. That sounds really fancy, but basically it links ideas, sentences, or paragraphs by indicating relationships. And that's huge. That's what the transition is. It indicates how the two pieces of information are connected. Is it sequence? Is it contrast? Is it cause and effect? What are you doing between section 1 and section 2 of the words that you want to say? So I love this second part. Transitions help guide readers through the logical flow of the text, improving coherence and clarity. And so this is a great definition to share with students. It's a great one to come back to because it's not like it's one small list of words. It's not like it's even one type of words. It really has to do with how the words and phrases are used in sentences to become this linguistic device.
What I love about this too, with the logical flow of the text, is it makes students also think about what is the purpose of this sentence? What is the meaning behind this sentence? And if they can identify that, they can identify a really good transitional word to use for that sentence, but it makes them think about the purpose of their writing and on the sentence level, which I think is amazing.
Yeah, not just one more sentence to write down and get closer to the end, right?
Right, exactly. All right, pop quiz. So how many transitional words and phrases are found in high scoring writing? Okay, you can throw it in the chat if you're watching this live. Let us know. Do you think it's A, 3 or 4 transitional words per paragraph? B, only at the beginning of each paragraph? Or C, nearly every sentence? Now, I know before I took Writing with Design, what my answer would have been, but y'all can put it in the chat to let us know.
I know what like 90% of secondary students would say.
Absolutely.
That is B. They would say, oh, it goes at the beginning of the paragraph, right? Because that's where I put my first, and then my second, and then my next, and then my last, right? Every student starts with essays that's first, second, next, last.
All right, Amanda has voted C. Excellent. Anyone else want to get their vote in before we reveal the answer? I'm with you, Tabitha. I definitely would have in my mind picked B before my training with Writing with Design, because again, that's how I was taught writing, was at the beginning of every paragraph. That's when we transition into a new idea, and that's the only time you need a transitional word.
Yeah, and no, you're wrong, actually. A is even better, 3 or 4 per paragraph, but what we actually know about high scoring writing is
C.
C. Good job, Amanda. Amanda got it. High scoring writing has a transitional word or phrase in nearly every sentence.
Yeah, that seems kind of overwhelming, but like Megan said earlier, when you are using the right transitions, it flows so well, because the first thing you think when you hear this is, no, it doesn't sound good when it's first, next, last, but that's why we don't use those, right? Because when we're using transitions that flow well and have a deeper meaning, it's almost like when you're reading them, you're not even picking up on the fact that they're transitional words because they're flowing so smoothly.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. And that really ties into this next slide. No more megaphones. And that's really what those very obvious, very overused transitions are like. They sound like students are shouting in their writing. And so we definitely don't want that. We want that more subtle transition. We want, like Tabitha said, where it just flows. It just, you don't even know you're reading these sophisticated transitions, but you just know the piece feels like it all connected and it was smooth and it just all made sense, right? That's one great indicator that strong transitions are being used. So how do we get students to do this? How do we get them away from the megaphones? Number one is you just tell them they can't use them anymore, right? That's plain and simple. And that's a great kind of just mantra to have in the classroom of no more megaphone transitions. And these are the worst 5, but even the ones that are like in summary or to conclude, those are 2 of my absolute least liked. I almost said hated, which I probably should. They're probably they're hated. I don't like those transitions. I don't use them because we know it's your conclusion, right? We know it's your summary. It's because it's at the end, right? So just don't be so obvious, right? Megaphone transitions are just too obvious. We want the more subtle, the more sophisticated ones. So we have an activity here called Instead of First. And I'm going to see if this will, no, I'm operator error. I got to learn how to still do this. Actually I could replace it. Hold on. I'm learning on the fly, learning.
You got this. I believe in you.
Look, it did it. Okay.
Yay.
So look at me go. Yay. Okay. So Instead of First is an SFA that we have for students. And it says 3rd through 5th grade, and developing is kind of our middle range student writer. But you are welcome to use this in any grade level. We just try to give some kind of general bands of grades that we feel it fits for generally, but you are always welcome to utilize anything that we share with any age level student. So this one is really simple in that we're just taking sentences that have the word first, and we're coming up with other ways to do that. Just fresh ways that are related to the pictures that have nothing really to do with anything else except what's on the screen. So it's easy. It's really accessible for students. So first slide just really talks about how there's so many ways to say first, right? Look at all this. Earlier that day, as soon as we got there, once we arrived, on Friday. So there's really not like a set list of ways to say first. So that's why none of our resources are going to say, instead of first, use these 15 options, because first has so many variables of when it could be. But what we do want to do is have students start to pay attention to what are these starter words like while and once and when. Those subtle transition starters are really one of our biggest tips and tricks when it comes to getting students to add in more subtle transitions. So as we go to the first activity, it's just going to give you kind of that starter or that basic sentence. First, we ate breakfast. When did we eat breakfast? And so you can see that there's 3 that are popped in there just to give students ideas of what they might say instead of first. And that blank bubble is really to encourage students to come up with their own. So if you're watching live, if you want to think of what we could say instead of first we ate breakfast, where were we, when did it happen? Those are wonderful ways of adding in really subtle transitions to the writing. And so this activity continues that way. So this next slide will show kind of how they all kind of sound when they're replaced out. So instead of first we ate breakfast, or I should say first we ate breakfast becomes stronger when it's written as when we woke up, we ate breakfast. Instead of first we ate breakfast, we could say once my papa finished cooking pancakes, we ate breakfast. So all of the ones on the right are showing a much stronger way of saying first.
Mm-hmm.
And then it keeps going. When did we get a present? That sounds fun. I'd like one of those.
Students that seem to have a really hard time with this in like narrative writing. And a lot of times you can just tell them, open up your favorite book. How does that book start, right? Because no book out there starts with first. Right? No book out there starts with first. Nobody's publishing that book. So, have kids open up their favorite book. What is the first line of that book? How are they transitioning you from the real world into the novel?
That's such a great activity too, to just do like a transition detective work of looking at whether it's narratives or informational pieces, kind of how are the sentences, and even within the sentences, how is information being transitioned? And that can be just a really powerful way for students to start to see, gosh, they're everywhere, right? And there's so many of them. So that SFA will be in our show notes. So you are certainly welcome to go back and grab that. I'm going to try to guess where we were slide-wise. I didn't catch the number. Oh, nope, too far. Hold on. We'll go back. There we go. So that's the first SFA we wanted to share with you tonight. The instead of first, it's a very simple one, but it just starts to wake students up to the idea of, oh yeah, I don't even have to put first in terms of an event in a story.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. I got really excited because you mentioned not detention. Oh my gosh. I just transition detective. And I was like, I need to make an SFA on that. So sorry. I had to make myself a Post-it note. Okay. Sorry. So in our student and teacher guides, we have lists of transitions. So our students can look at these and see, like, how do I use these, right? And you'll see on the very far left is emerging writers list, and then the right two are developing. And we also have established, but for right now, I'm just showing you the first 2 levels. And if you look a little bit closer, I know it's a little hard to see right now, but if you look at like emerging to developing, you're going to see some duplications there because we are growing up, right? So we're still using those same transitions in developing, but we're adding to it. And you're not going to find those megaphone transitions on these lists because there are so many other ways to say things. And, you know, if you teach ELA at the end of the year, you are so tired of seeing every essay start off with first and end in finally, right? And so we have transitions for informational, argumentative, and then narrative transitions. Our informational and argumentative are almost identical, but narrative is such a beast of its own. And, you know, we are not starting stories off in the same way that we start our essays off. But these are part of our teacher and student guides because this is something we want our students to have access to. They're not going to use transitions if they, A, don't know what the words are, and B, if they don't have access to them. And it's great to provide this resource to them so they can look and be like, oh, I am concluding my story now. These are some really great transitions for this. Or I am addressing my counter argument. Here are some really great transitions to do that. And so there's so many different purposes here to use. Sorry, I got my brain stopped for a minute. It just stopped.
Well, I can pick up. I think maybe I was sucking all your brain power because I wanted to say that transitions are really like their own academic language. And so it really takes that intentional teaching and list giving for students to know what their options are. And, you know, we've all, I think one of the most endearing things that I know the three of us have seen when students are learning transitions is they utilize ones that don't quite fit, but you see that they're trying so hard. So I just love when there's this insertion of these transitional phrases, even if it doesn't fully flow yet, because students are learning when and why to use them. So that's really one of the neat things about how these are set up. You've got what's the purpose in bold on the left side, and then their choices on the right. And we intentionally capitalize the ones that students can use at the beginning of the sentence. And so that just also kind of clearly indicates how many are available to start a sentence versus the ones that can only be utilized in the middle of sentences. And spoiler alert, it's really not that many. Most transitions can be put at the beginning of the sentence, and that just makes for such a powerful transition. So we're going to show you one more SFA. So tonight it's a 2 SFA episode, and this one is called Instead of First, Next, and Finally. And this one is actually getting into argumentative writing. So this is just to have a contrast to the one we showed earlier for narrative about how we want to utilize transitional words in the writing. You'll see how different it is when we're now talking about argumentative writing. And what's great is that this one is pulling straight from those lists of words. So when students want to say their first reason in argumentative writing, and this piece in particular is about why Jolly Ranchers are so good. So we have some work to do on the language, but even just but taking what students have here and just isolating one particular piece that we want to work on their transitions is going to really improve their writing. So this one is first, Jolly Ranchers are sour. And there's more to that sentence, like the pink lemonade lollipop. That was an excellent addition into that writing. But just for the sake of what we're doing here, notice that we have given 3 choices here, and then students can also use their list to come up with another one. And we have a little asterisk by first, and that's because we don't want to say you can never use first, but we say you are only allowed one, right? One of those megaphone transitions, so use it wisely. If you want it for the first one, then you are one and done, right? Or you can save it for one on down the line. So now the writing might say something like, to begin, Jolly Ranchers are sour, right? To begin is a great transition to get into your first reason. And then it keeps going. Next, Jolly Ranchers melt in your mouth when you lick them. And look at all of the ones instead of next, right? There is really no reason to use next or then. Those middle transitions, there's just so many options. So this is where students can really feel like they've got a lot of choice, which will let them feel like they have a lot of ownership of their writing. And they really do. And then just to show you on the last one, we've got the watermelon flavored Jolly Ranchers are my favorite flavor. So notably, most importantly, most compellingly. So those three are way stronger than last or finally.
I
So
think
we've
you
got
could
the
even say
megaphone
like
on.
you could say inarguably because watermelon
Ooh,
are the superior Jolly Rancher. Like there is no contest
yeah,
there.
I know.
This is a correct statement right here.
In fact, this should not be that should not be argumentative writing, right? It's pure fact. Yeah. But what I hope is that this just also gives ideas of taking students' work, and we can't fix every problem or everything that we want to make stronger, but even taking just the transitional words, it's going to make this writing sound so much better, right? Jolly Ranchers are so good. To begin, Jolly Ranchers are sour like the pink lemonade lollipop. In addition, Jolly Ranchers melt in your mouth when you lick them, or maybe furthermore. Furthermore, Jolly Ranchers melt in your mouth when you lick them. What did you say? Inarguably?
I did. I don't need that is a word, right? Like it because
I like
arguably,
it. Regardless, we're gonna go with it.
yeah.
I
And
like
I'm
it.
pretty sure inarguably. Yeah. I mean, it's
Yeah.
a fact.
Right.
True
Right.
facts.
Inarguably.
That feels more like
Jolly
a
Rancher
hashtag.
candy. The watermelon one is really good. It's the best, right? And then we got to work on the ending. So I'm not even going to read that. But stay tuned for another episode on closings, and we'll come back and fix the ending on this one. But you see how that just already ratchets up the quality of this writing simply by replacing those transitional words. So it's really remarkable what that kind of focus can do for students writing. And that really takes us into our last little segment here about the research. And because everything we do here is backed by science of reading and writing and literacy and learning research. And so we wanted to end by just sharing with you, beyond making the writing sound great, like why are transitional words important for you to be focusing on with your students?
All right, so text cohesion improves comprehension, especially for our striving readers. So we all have those students who are sitting there going, I don't know what to write. I don't know what you mean. I don't know how to do this, right? And what I love about bringing writing with design into the classroom is the lists that we've already shown you that are categorized by purpose. For me as a teacher, that is game changing for our struggling students, because I can sit there and say, what is the purpose of your sentence? Let's go to our list that's already pre-made, and I want you to pick one of these transitional words. This not only supports the student with really well-developed transitional words that are already there in front of them, but it gives them the confidence that they're lacking and the ownership to be able to make that choice themselves, it to be the correct choice, right? Because I mean, we can use all kinds of transitional words within that purpose and it would still be the correct one. And from that, they get to make this really amazing, sophisticated sounding sentence that they wouldn't have been able to come up with on their own, but they get to take ownership with because they're the ones that picked the word or the transitional phrase from that list. So for me, working with striving readers and working to differentiate structures and scaffolds for students with learning differences, what we have with the writing with design lists are amazing. And that's exactly why we do this, is to be able to really help those developing readers make those relationships between what their idea and purpose is in the sentence and how are we going to formulate this transition into that idea.
Yeah. And it really ties into reading too. So while when they have all that explicit practice with writing of it, then when they go and read it, it actually can lessen their cognitive load, right? They can pay more attention to what the actual content is because they're getting the connections between the information. So pretty remarkable research there.
Well, speaking of reading, explicit instruction in text structure, including transitions, supports reading comprehension. So, an activity that I really love to do with my middle schoolers to help them like navigate and learn how to truly use transitions is, as you're studying text structures in your reading text, is have students highlight and identify the transitions that they're seeing in the different text structures. Not only can you use that to transition into writing, like what transitions can you use in your writing, but it's also a really great way to compare and contrast the different ways that transitions are used in cause and effect versus problem and solution, or how are transitions used in sequencing versus
Compare, contrast.
compare,
Ooh,
contrast. Guys,
Megan.
my brain is just, but when you're looking at the five major text structures, having students identify those transitions that are used in those and seeing, well, which ones are shared among those text structures, which ones are specific to this text structure, and then being able to utilize those text structures in their own writing. They can make those connections between writing and reading. And so not only does it help with transitions in their own writing, but once they're able to identify those transitions in those text structures, like we all know, no matter what state you live in, there is a text structure question on the end of year test, right? No matter what state you live in, what text structure was the article that you read, right? Once they can identify those transitional words, they are much more likely to be able to identify the text structure that they're reading. So, I mean, understanding transitions works so well in writing and reading.
Absolutely. And this last one really encapsulates the other two research points to say that when there's explicit instruction and transitions, it improves both writing and reading. And that's what we really love about this, is that there's this byproduct of increasing reading skill sets. And what I really love is that when we look at like how is text determined to be at certain reading levels, there are a couple kind of key things that go into all of the different reading formulas. One of them is the number of multisyllabic words and the number of syllables in those multisyllabic words. Are we talking 2? Are we talking 4? Right. So multisyllabic words is a big indicator of increased reading difficulty. And then the second is sentence structure. And one of the main ways that sentence structure is increased or becomes more complicated is by the use of transitions, whether it's single transition words or our favorite, those phrases. We are increasing the difficulty of the readability of the text. And so what's beautiful about the writing piece of that is that when students have that as the entry point, when they are writing to learn how to do transitional words and phrases, it then makes them stronger at reading and making connections between the content when they see them in text. And then back to the other two pieces that Megan and Tabitha shared, right? So there's just this really neat symbiotic relationship between explicit instruction and transitions, improving writing, understanding text structures, and then boosting comprehension and ownership of knowing those transitions to just make better connections. So truly, you can't spend your time on anything better. So we want you to go out and really work with your students on transitions because they are just that critical and important. So we have one final parting beautiful evening bridge to share with you tonight. And don't we all want to be there? It's beautiful.
Yes. So teaching students to use intentional transitions in writing is not just about style. And before I finish this quote, I want to tell you why it's not just about style. I just went on to thesaurus.com because a lot of times when we encourage our students to use a thesaurus to find other words, but transitions is kind of the what's that? Something to the rule. My brain is just totally dead tonight. What's the you guys know what I'm trying to say? Like it's
Exception to the rule?
Exception to the rule. Thank you. Oh my gosh. I'm going to sleep tonight. I promise. Thesauruses and transitions don't always work well together because let's say you want to you want to say furthermore, right? Furthermore, watermelon is the best flavor of Jolly Rancher because, well, if you look at a thesaurus, one of the options is in the bargain. And I don't know about you guys, but that just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. Or if you were to say to boot, which is very okay conversationally, but that's not really academic language we want to be using in our essays. So, it is not just about style. It's not just about opening up a thesaurus and figuring out the funnest word, the word that makes us sound the smartest, because in this case, it doesn't always work, which is why we have those beautiful charts with the purpose for our transitions. Transitions are about thinking clearly and helping our readers understand. They reduce confusion, they increase logical flow, and improve reading comprehension, especially in complex texts. And like I mentioned earlier, when students can read their transitions and they're not even really picking up on the fact that they are transitions because it's just working and reading and flowing, then like you've hit the jackpot.
Yeah, well said. So that is going to bring us to the end. So I'm not going to say in conclusion or to summarize, but we are
To boot. You could say to boot.
That's right. But yeah, we teach truly, clearly, overall. Indeed, yes. I always feel like I need a monocle for that one.
Exceedingly, you've made good points tonight.
Yeah, we hope that transitions are seen in a new light tonight, and that you have some resources from all of our hard work to utilize with your students and children to help them be better at inserting in those transitions that help their writing flow. It does so much for their thinking and their confidence, and also, of course, for their writing skills. So thanks so much for tuning in tonight. Please connect with us. We're on Facebook, we're on Insta, and we would just love to stay in touch. So there is a contact link down at the bottom here where you can just share your contact information with us to be a part of any news and our newsletters, where we just share lots of tips and resources and updates from us. So, and if you are curious about all that research, that's that last slide. You can go to that and take a look at all of the pieces. Of course, my boy is on there, Graham's on there, but lots of others. So thanks again for tuning in tonight. We always love talking writing with you, and we'll see you all next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.